Moving on to the next subject, we're going to talk about this silly ass guy, DaBaby.
DaBaby.
For those of you all who don't know, DaBaby is a rapper, not to be confused with Lil Baby. Yes, there are grown-ass men with the name DaBaby and Little Baby
I
rappers.
still don't think that's an issue, though. Yeah,
I just think it's weird. Like, it's just,
Very
the
weird.
whole like naming thing, and then DaBaby actually choosing to like wear an actual diaper around the whole situation I just don't exactly. It's like weird as fuck. I don't even know how to like articulate myself about it because like I just find the whole thing just crazy as hell. But so the subject we're going to be diving into is, and the specific question rather, is DaBaby's over apologizing a sign of being buck broken? So for those of you who don't know what this background is, and we're actually going to throw this to Eman to give his thoughts first, but what the background is on this story is DaBaby had a concert recently, definitely made some comments that ruffled a lot of feathers, to say the very least, and then has decided to apologize for those comments. So I'm sure each of us will dive a little more into it as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this to Eman to start us off. And again, the question, is DaBaby's over apologizing a sign of being buck broken? What say you, sir?
Well, of course he's buck broken. Like, come on, wet behind the ears because he's a baby. What do you expect, But like I told everyone, see, this what happens when you don't feed the baby, you don't change his diaper and whatnot, and you don't give him his food, and no one pays him attention. This what happens and whatnot. You see? So I hope he learned a very valuable lesson and whatnot. When you forget to burp the baby, feed the baby, and making sure that, his diapers change on time and whatnot, this shit wouldn't even happen and whatnot. But oh no, gotta let him do his thing. He went over there to go do his thing, and look what happened and whatnot. So, and this apologies that you keep throwing out is because the simple fact is, DaBaby ain't making no money, at the moment. I don't know how many deals he has. I don't know if his deals are guaranteed, non-guaranteed, half 50, doesn't matter and whatnot. But that was on you. I mean, towards what you said, it didn't bother me at all. But, if whatever you choose to do behind closed doors and you do it how you want to do it, that's fine. That's cool and whatnot. But I don't think the world needs to know what you said and how you said it and whatnot. I felt it was uncalled for that and whatnot. Just keep all nasty comments that you got going on to yourself so you don't fuck up shit, But you got people who be feeling themselves a lot, and this is what happens, You end up, I don't even want to say the word, but you end up not just buck broken, but yeah, you get wet behind the ears too much, man. By meaning, you don't know how to act right because your slave master put you in place and whatnot. I'm sorry, but I had to use that term and whatnot, So I'm not gonna, it's hard to defend someone who not just made himself look like not just an asshole and not just like a jackass, but you do it to yourself, bruh. Like you really do and whatnot. Like you just do. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like you really put yourself in these situations and whatnot. I saw the video on IG. I laughed my ass off because I thought it was hilarious. Everyone else is like, damn. But I keep telling everyone, this LGBTQ community, they got some very powerful spokespeople, They're not an actual community. They just got really people who are, big spokesmen and they're just willing to like destroy you and whatnot, Because for me, I'm not scared of them and whatnot, but I have nothing hateful to say about them. But I'll be real about the situation because I know the truth about them and how, how their whole thing started. But that's a whole nother story from that. But DaBaby, this is what happens when you don't follow rules, and basically they put you in check, and they put you in check, and you're gonna probably keep apologizing. Oh, you got something to say, you got something to say, PAT?
No, I was just saying, big time. You said they put him in check. I said, yeah, they put him in check big time.
Because I remember, there's so many situations that's happened behind this. Didn't Kevin Hart go through the same thing? My man Kevin Hart was apologizing until his height even got shorter and whatnot.
He did. Yep, he did apologize.
Shit, they got this nigga apologizing, not just on national TV. They took my man's hosting job, and he still had to apologize on that one. I was like, damn. So I told Kevin, how short do you feel now? Pretty short still. But yeah. But yeah, they know who they messing with. They know who runs them their checks. They know and whatnot. They try to act big, because now I'm at 300 million and whatnot. I'm like, nah, bruh. You're at their 300 million. They're just making sure that you don't fuck up, my man, and whatnot. Because when you fuck up, you already know they're going to get that spokesperson to put you in check and be like, you know what? You better say sorry and whatnot. You better say sorry, So, DaBaby, you can keep apologizing. But like I said in the beginning, when it comes to DaBaby, can y'all make sure his diapers change, make sure he's fed right and whatnot, and make sure you birth the baby before he come over here acting like a fool and whatnot. So somebody didn't do their job, And that's how I'm just going to end my thoughts from there, Do a damn job, making sure he's fed, burped, and wiped. Like, it's not that hard, but y'all need to go figure it out for your damn selves. So,
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you taking the time to share. So I'm going to go ahead and speak on this next. And I think this is, for me, definitely an interesting question. So the question officially is, DaBaby's over apologizing a sign of being buck broken? And I'm going to say absolutely not. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't feel like it's a sign of him being buck broken. I feel like it's a sign of him trying to save his career after making idiotic and unnecessary dumb fucking comments. I mean, the idea that it's related to buck breaking to me is ridiculous, because the definition of buck breaking, according to multiple sources, is the use of sexual violence against enslaved men as a punishment for wrongdoing. I'm going to repeat that. The definition of buck breaking, according to multiple sources, is the use of sexual violence against enslaved men as a punishment for wrongdoing. So in this context, it clearly doesn't make any sense. There's obviously no sexual act happening against DaBaby. And even if someone's argument is, okay, well, we're using the common definition of it now because, slave times are over. Well, that's my point. The common definition of it now doesn't make any sense. The term no longer applies. And to be honest, I feel like it is being overly used in ridiculous ways to imply that Black men are somehow being emasculated if he's made to apologize for something he did. That is crazy to me. It's like Black men can't apologize, or if they apologize, they're being emasculated. That's a problem in our community.
Anybody can apologize.
But he isn't being forced to apologize. He chose to apologize. That's my point. I can tell you how I'm confident in saying that. He has since removed the apology from social media. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have, once they started removing him from festivals, he went on social media and removed his apology. That is a conscious decision by him.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact is he still apologized. I mean, he removed it because I did see that also, but I mean, it's done already.
That's like apologizing to unapologize.
Yeah, but exactly. And my point is, you're both proving my point that it was his option to do it. His money was affected, yes, but he put his money in jeopardy. He made those comments. He needs to stand on his own consequences. Like, for me, this doesn't make any sense, right? Because we're saying, oh, when DaBaby apologized for what he said, for the comments and etc. he made, it was buck breaking. But just a few sessions ago, we were talking about Nick Cannon apologizing, and it was, oh, because his money was in jeopardy. What's the difference in this situation? DaBaby's money was in jeopardy. He started losing sponsors. He didn't apologize because someone put a gun to his head and said, we're going to emasculate you as a black man. Apologize right now, or we're going to pull this trigger. He apologized because he started fucking up his money because he made completely unnecessary comments. I mean, this is who DaBaby is in general. It's not about defending one group over the other. It's not about saying he's wrong for his comments, he's right for his comments. I mean, personally, I don't understand why anyone who is a straight male has spent so much time concerned about what the LGBTQ community is doing. Why the fuck do you care so much? Like, that's my personal opinion. But that's not the only thing that DaBaby did that day. That's not the only thing DaBaby did that day. He also, that same concert, he went right after Meg Thee Stallion. The very first thing he did was brought Tory Lanez on stage, as if to purposely throw a jab at Meg Thee Stallion, as if Tory Lanez shooting her in the foot just because she didn't want to argue and got out of the car with him and was trying to get out of the car with him was okay. He's clearly misogynistic. He's clearly a fucking nincompoop, and he deserved, because he didn't have to make the comments that he made, to feel the repercussions of it. His comment, and if you wasn't sucking dick in the parking lot, had nothing to do with his show, and he purposely wanted to throw a jab at the LGBT community. For what? I can understand if there was some kind of premise to it where, like, before the show, two people were caught sucking dick in the parking lot or something, then maybe it's understandable. But other than that, this is just a clear case of someone having to deal with the consequences of his actions. That was very obvious to me the moment he took that apology down. If it was true buck breaking, he would not have the ability to take the apology down, because he would be forced to be emasculated and deal with having to apologize, even though he didn't want to. He basically said, oh, y'all want to withdraw me from the festivals? Y'all not going to let me perform? Well, then fuck y'all apology. I'm going to take it back, which is a conscious decision that he made. It's just not the definition of buck breaking. I feel like people learned about buck breaking and then just went crazy with the term. And I'm not saying the two
terms correctly.
Right, I'm not exactly. That's my point.
Different definitions too, though. But
that's the point. That's
so here comes exactly the thing. So sorry to cut you off now, Angel. I'm gonna break a very quick etymology lesson right here. So the reason why many words have definitions is because they derive from different things. Like when you have an origin, it starts from somewhere. But these words they have many different origins that create these words. So when we use it in the English sense and whatnot, just because they have so many different defines based upon how they were created, everyone uses them all in bad, I would say, like they use it not in the bad sense, but they use it incorrectly. And that's what confuses a lot of people when words are being used. So, but
the problem with that is you devalue the term when you do that. If you
and that's their goal. That's the
if you start throwing, it doesn't. So then it's the individual's responsibility to recognize what the goal is and to make sure they're using it properly.
Of course.
If you start applying it in every situation where it's not applicable, you take away from the value of the word.
That's why I blame
broken
that
is
some of y'all
not,
need to go back to school for.
Right. Well, but see, I give a little more credit to the master. Right. I think, yes, there are definitely some ignorant people who just don't understand what the definition of buck broken is. But at the same time, there are some people who I like to call hoteps who watch a few documentaries and videos, and then they start using these terms willy-nilly in every fucking thing they say and do. And I'm sorry, but when you do that, you devalue the term. I
call them fake conscious people.
Exactly. And I actually watched the documentaries as well as did a lot of research on buck breaking. It was a real thing. I am not denying that.
Of course.
And
it was a real thing too.
Yeah, and it was something that was actually very prevalent in the Caribbean. A lot of the Caribbean slave owners used it much more so than the American slave owners did. And it ended up actually creating something that they call sex farms, where the Caribbean slave owners were going to different farms and emasculating and having sex with Black men so that they could humiliate them if they acted out against them and prevented other slaves from following them. Trust me, I am not saying being buck broken didn't exist. I am not saying that there isn't some relevancy to a certain extent today. This case is not one of the situations, in my opinion. DaBaby not only made the homophobic comments, which were completely unnecessary, but he also took actions against Megan Thee Stallion for no reason that were completely toxic and just misogynistic. This dude in general is a complete asshole. And this is not his first offense. This is not the first time DaBaby has gone completely ridiculous. He has punched a fan before, or allegedly punched a fan before with multiple witnesses there, a female fan. And she did not physically harm him first. Who does that? He is actually acting and behaving like a baby. And that is fucking sad. He is taking his name entirely too literal. But to answer the question and to wrap this up, is DaBaby's over apologizing a sign of being buck broken? Not in my opinion. It's a sign of him realizing he fucked with his cash flow by making completely ridiculous and unnecessary homophobic comments. And he tried to make up for that with his non-sincere apologies. And a sign that it wasn't buck breaking was it don't have anything to do with him being sexually violently assaulted. And B, he 100% on his own fruition removed the apology. Someone who is being mentally manipulated doesn't have that authority and ability to do it, especially in the context that is being suggested. That is my opinion on the matter. I'm going to throw it to Mr. PAT to wrap us up. What say you, sir?
Oh, before you say anything, PAT, I just want to say basically we don't love them hoes. So, but you can continue. So yeah, we just don't love them hoes. I'm sorry. I just had it on my mind. After when I was finished talking, I was like, my mind was like, yeah, we don't love them hoes.
He had to get that out there.
I just had to get it out there. I just had to. So yeah.
Oh man. Okay. I'm sorry. This is funny to me. And oh man, how do I follow up that response?
I was a little passionate, definitely.
Yeah, you definitely were. I mean, I feel what you're saying. I'm not gonna lie. I in a way, I disagree. I mean, I agree in some senses, but then in other senses, I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
So with buck broken, and by the way, I'm the one who came up with that question. I'll just put it out there for the listeners. PAT came up with the question.
But just to clarify, my response is not directed to you per se, because my response is generally, because I said hoteps, and you are definitely not a hotep.
No, I know you weren't responding. I know you weren't responding directly to me. I mean, and the question is it's a general question. It's not really to respond to each other on the podcast.
And multiple people have been talking about that, so it's definitely a fair question.
Right, and and to clarify, it's definitely a general question for everybody. For us and the listeners. And the reason why I brought buck broken into this specific thing is because buck breaking, and you already described it, and I mean that is the right definition, but like I was saying before, definitions, certain words take on different definitions over time. Now it's the same thing. It's about emasculating, or I should say demasculating the Black man, but it doesn't have to necessarily come through sexual violence. So people use buck breaking in the sense of it being done even on a corporate level. Like actually, Tariq Nasheed, he has the documentary Buck Breaking, which I got, and I watched it. Thought it was a great documentary, by the way. And he also had a episode on his or a session or on his YouTube channel. It's called Corporate Buck Breaking. And when I saw that, I just thought the title was interesting. And I actually didn't watch the whole thing. I just listened to bits and pieces of what he said. But what he was saying, I was like, okay, I see where you're going with this. Dr. Boyce Watkins mentioned buck breaking when he was talking about Nick Cannon over apologizing when he was accused of anti-Semitism. You remember that clip on Instagram, right, E-Man?
Yeah, I do. I think I was the one who chimed in on that, actually.
Right.
Only because what Nick meant to me, and for me, Dr. Boyce Watkins, like me and him have like a hate-love relationship. Like there's shit that, I agree with him. And then, sometimes I'd be like, nigga, I don't agree with you on that shit. So, and at that point, what you were saying was, definitely true. And it falls back to the same thing about DaBaby. Like, but here comes the thing. You see Nick's situation, he said something, that wasn't, he was actually just speaking truth on something versus as DaBaby just being DaBaby.
The baby.
I think in all fairness, though, it all boils down to, and of course, PAT, apologies for interrupting there. But I think what it boils down to is even whether or not the person actually over apologized is a matter of opinion. I just think that to take the term buck broken and use it so freely, regardless of whether or not you feel the term has evolved, devalues it. Because if you start using it in every situation where a Black male celebrity apologizes, you take away from times where it is actually an appropriate situation. It is not a sign of buck breaking every time a Black man has to apologize for his wrongs. Black men do things wrong, just like any other human being. Black men make mistakes just like white men make mistakes, just like Black women make mistakes. We start to blur the lines into toxicity when we start saying, if you over apologize, then you're buck broken as a Black man. We got to be careful with that, because we already have this community where Black men are fearful to go get the appropriate mental health because it's looked at as a sign of weakness. And so that's where my concern and fear comes in. Where do you start drawing the lines with that? If you start using the term too freely, it's going to be very difficult to decipher when it's appropriate to say, this is a matter of a male needing to evaluate himself, because Black men need to do that just like everyone else does at some point.
Yeah,
Black men are capable of making mistakes. In this situation, the baby made a mistake. And I don't see this situation. If anything, I could see more so, even though I still disagree with it, I could see more so how Nick Cannon's situation could possibly be construed as buck breaking. But that's way more so than I could see for the baby who just made homophobic comments. His comments were completely homophobic and unnecessary. Like, there's no way to get around that. Nobody said anything about two dudes sucking dick. Nobody said anything about the LBGT community, no GTQ community. There was no premise whatsoever for him to make those comments. And I just worry that,
unless he does it though. So.
Well, you know, and what people do in the privacy of their own home, to me, is none of my business. I think everyone should have the opportunity to live their life the way they see fit. My concern is that if that term starts getting thrown around, and just like any other term, where, and first of all, it's a slightly offensive term for some. And because it almost always alludes to why a Black man is gay. And come on now, that to imply that every Black man that is gay is buck broken is ridiculous. Like, I wouldn't even address someone who was making that claim. But when you start throwing that term around, like as freely as people are doing, without understanding the premise of the term, not only does it devalue the term, not that I think it has value, but not only does it devalue that term, it devalues any term when it is not used properly or overused. If it has so many definitions, how do you know when it's the appropriate time to use it?
I mean, for every word, you don't know the appropriate time until you study the etymology of the word and where it originates, so it can be used correctly in the correct sense.
Not for every
people
word.
Don't get.
Not for every word.
No, for every word. So for every word, because you're
telling me people have to know the etymology of every word before they use it, the origin of it. I mean, I don't think people know the origin of every word.
That's ideal, but I mean,
that's the ideal. But
nobody's going to know the origin of
exactly.
You're not going to know because you have to really study it. You know, but
that's going to take certain people to do that. A lot of people aren't going to just, pick up.
Exactly.
They're not going to pick up a etymology. What do you call it? An etymology with dictionary.
Right.
They're not. A lot of people just aren't going to be picking that up left and right. Some people will. Some people will, but people won't do that.
Most people will not.
Yeah, most people won't.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. So now I'm gonna chime in and say, like, how the fuck that we got all these smartphones but nobody can download an app? That's all I'm saying. That's all.
People are
lazy.
That's
lazy fucks.
I mean, because I have the dictionary app. I mean, I'm always looking up words, and but everybody's not gonna do that. That's just the reality. A lot of people aren't like us, where we look things up and try to get deeper into stuff, and people aren't gonna do that. But so basically, you touched on a lot of things, and I'm gonna try to.
Should have went last on this one. That's what I'm thinking. You should have went last.
Right. I'm gonna try to address
everything.
Y'all know so much passion comes out of me.
And that's what makes the good, the bad, and the truth what it is. So it's all good. And
I feel like, Pat, right now, I think you just need to come out with a very nonchalant comment, and I think we can pick it back up.
I mean, that's not going to end it off too good. I mean, I definitely got to speak my piece on this whole thing. And now, of course, I got to respond to some of the stuff Naya said, because like I said before, there are aspects that I agree with her on, but then there are other aspects where I disagree. So to address the apologizing, so I just want to make it clear that there is nothing wrong with Black men apologizing. Like there's nothing wrong with making an apology. Apologizing isn't a bad thing in and of itself. So that's not an issue. And I don't think people really see that in particular as an issue. But again, when it comes to these types of things, whether it be DaBaby, Nick Cannon, Kevin Hart, there's a power dynamic going on. And, you know, these guys, they're working for the white power structure, and they're projecting themselves as strong Black men, which, okay, fine. And they're just saying whatever they say. Okay, fine. But then when what they say causes problems, they have to all of a sudden walk what they said back. They have to walk it back because now that white power structure that they work for is basically putting their foot down and saying, oh no, you need to apologize for saying what you said. And if you don't, we are going to take these opportunities away from you. If you don't apologize, you're not going to be able to make money like that.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. So I definitely agree with that sentiment.
So now with buck breaking, again, this goes back to, I guess, corporate buck breaking, because of course it's not like sexual violence. Like it's not that going on, at least not that any of that we know of anyway. But you know, it's not in that sense. It's the emasculation part, because at its core, buck breaking is emasculating Black men. And I think myself and others who use the term, and you know, with that term, I don't use it loosely like that. When I'm using it, there's a reason and a purpose for it.
I agree.
And in this sense, I'm using it and saying I'm, you know, corporate buck breaking, not you know, buck breaking that took place during slavery. Right. I'm talking about buck breaking in the corporate sense, where the Black man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying where the Black man or the Black celebrity in these situations are being emasculated because they're basically being placed in a position to apologize for comments that they made, regardless of, you know, whether we agree with the comments or disagree with them. They're still in a position where they're pretty much forced. And I know forced isn't probably the best word to use, because nobody's forced to do anything. People could do whatever they want, but I mean, their money's getting fucked up, so it puts them in a compromising position.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just have this question while it's fresh on my mind. But the way that you're relaying this implies that it is, in fact, it's what you actually said, is that it's emasculating because they're being forced to apologize. Yeah. Emasculating and being forced to apologize doesn't equate for me. Emasculating and being forced to somehow participate in homophobic homosexual acts, or being forced to somehow do something that loses your masculinity equates, but apologizing doesn't equate to losing your masculinity for me. That's my problem. That's where my concern comes in, is that we're appropriating those things, and that's dangerous, because just because someone is made to apologize, regardless of the reason, doesn't mean their masculinity is being stripped. Are you all of a sudden going to not have a pineal gland if you're forced to apologize?
Did you just say
or whatever the term is? I'm trying to use the proper term for penis.
Penis. That's what you got to say.
Because I didn't want to be like offensive.
Come on, this is an adult program right here.
Isn't the penile gland the term for penis?
We just say penis, or I mean, you already mentioned.
I don't want to say the C word, and I damn sure don't want to say the D word. So I was like, I'm gonna say, okay.
There's nothing wrong saying dick.
You already mentioned the D word earlier. Well, in regards to baby comments,
Yes, you did. There's nothing wrong saying it's okay.
I didn't even realize that I dropped that. Okay. So the penis dick. But no, it also it's just no. So let me be clear. I think you are 100% spot on with the fact that corporate America most certainly puts their foot down whenever they feel like Black people in general are getting out of line. I think they definitely do not value us the same way that they value artists of other cultures and races and etc. There's no question there. Exactly. You hit the nail right on the head. You're 100% spot on. My major concern is with associating emasculation with apologizing. I think that's dangerous.
Well, here's the thing. So like I was saying before, apologizing it's not necessarily just apologizing that I'm associating with emasculation. I'm talking more so in this context, and when we're talking about DaBaby, or when we mention Nick Cannon and anyone else in that regard, I'm talking about in those contexts where they're basically being placed in a position to apologize for something that they said. I'm not talking about just Black men apologizing for something that they actually did wrong. Wherever or whenever, that's not an issue.
But he actually did wrong in this situation, in my opinion. But
I'm looking at the power dynamic. So I'm looking at, because I'm like I said, these guys, they work for the white power structure, and I'm looking at the fact that they said something. As men, as grown men, they spoke their mind. They said whatever they said. Okay, we got that. People might agree, people disagree. We got that. But these same grown men are now being coerced. I think that's probably the better word. They're coerced to apologize. It's basically
I love it. I totally agree with that. That term works for me.
Yeah, and it's like basically like, nigga, you better apologize or we're gonna strip these opportunities from you. We're gonna strip your money from you. It's pretty much so that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the whole power dynamic of it. So in that regard, that's where I'm saying there's an emasculation going on, because as a man, and really as an adult, I mean, women too, but in this case, a man, you have power in the things you say, and you want to say
words have power.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Words have power.
Absolutely.
Right, words do have power too. But even just speaking, saying words, period, just speaking your mind, as a man, is a sign of strength. And when you are placed in a position to apologize for something that you said, especially within a power dynamic, such as white supremacy, in that respect, in that regard, I should say, I mean, it does get seen as buck breaking, like, and again, in the corporate sense, because they're in the corporate world, they're in the music industry, or they're in the entertainment industry. So that's where I'm going with it. But apologizing is not an issue. Just in general, apologizing is not an issue. I'm speaking more in this context where they're coerced to apologize for things that they have said.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for sharing, sir. I definitely agree with you in certain aspects on the coercion side of it. So I
Oh,
definitely
real
understand that.
quick. Before we really end it off, I was also gonna say, so with this whole thing, it's another power. It's a power play. It's a power play because buck breaking also came into this whole thing because there are certain communities out there who just want to make people bow down, basically. And one of my theories is that since there has been so much talk about racism and white supremacy, the media figured that they should highlight some type of comparative bigotry in Black people. So basically, Black people either have to be accused of anti-Semitism or homophobia or both. The media has been attacking.
That's very interesting. I'm gonna chime in on that, by the way.
Yeah, it's a comparative bigotry they're trying to, they're coming out with. So the media has been attacking high-profile Black men for the most part. And I think what that does is take some of the heat off of racism and white supremacy and the quote unquote, the white man being the villain. And it's the Black man who gets made to be the villain instead. But I say, I don't have much more to say on this matter aside from the fact that DaBaby apologizing is just yet another Black celebrity placed in a position where they have to bow down. Like I said before.
Correct.
Yeah, I think I was definitely with you up until with the coercion aspect of it, where people who are, for lack of a better term, required by corporate America to make these apologies and etc. are coerced into doing so. I don't think DaBaby was made to bow down in this situation. I think DaBaby made homophobic comments and he deserved to apologize for his behavior because they were unnecessary. I think also not only was he homophobic on that event, he was misogynistic on that event. I think DaBaby is not a good example of any. I personally don't think that most Black men should even want to relate to DaBaby in any way. I personally
agree with that.
That his behavior is atrocious and offensive. And just to quickly speak to what you mentioned about the way that the media are portraying Black men as anti-Semitic and etc. I think that in general, with powerful men, there is an opportunity for the media to sensationalize certain behavior. Because I recall when Mel Gibson was basically crucified for his anti-Semitic comments. And no one can say that he didn't suffer. He suffered. He lost movie deals. He lost endorsements. He lost, people were ready to sue him. I mean, he definitely got crucified, not only for his anti-Semitic comments, but for the fact that he said to his girlfriend that he wouldn't care if she went out and got raped by a pack of Black men or something along those lines.
Oh, he got
crucified. Yeah, exactly.
He thought he was a nigga
for his anti-Semitic behavior and his racist behavior. And he's clearly a white male. So I think in general, in my opinion, there is an intent of the media to sensationalize anytime a powerful man makes these kind of comments. I'm going to be real with you all. I think that in the Black community, there is definitely a fine line between having a disagreement about what people consider to be okay for someone's lifestyle and outright being biased against them. I think some Black men are scared to say they don't care what the LGBT community is doing for fear of being deemed gay themselves, and that's so scary to their masculinity that they won't even speak up and make that comment. In fact, I know some who are like that, who are not gay themselves, but won't even just say, and it's not that I expect that they have to, go out and join Pride Weekend or etc. But like to even say, hey, I don't have any problem, or I don't care about what's happening in the LGBT community. They are free to live their lives. I know some Black men who won't even make those comments for fear of being deemed gay, which is just too just deafening and scary to them, which is sad, because you are not going to be any less of a man because you're not homophobic. And I think that's something that is a serious problem in the Black community. I am not saying, as I've said on many, many occasions, I am an advocate for humanity. I am not an advocate for any specific movement. And my entire point is human beings have an inherent right to live, just in general. Human beings in general, if they are born, they have a right to live their life the way they want to. I don't give a fuck if someone wants to marry a tree. That is not my business. If them and that tree is going to be hugging happy, trees, though. Marry all the fucking trees you want to marry. I don't care.
I don't marry them, but I do hug them though. It's
right, exactly. I love trees too. But if someone wants to go out and marry a tree, that doesn't have anything to do with me. And I am an advocate of people being allowed to live their lives the way they want to live their lives, as long as they are not infringing on anyone else who has the right to live their life the way they want to. And so I just wanted to clarify that.
So I wanted to actually chime on what Pat was saying, but that is something I definitely believe in, that basically, the whole bigotry and the anti-Semitic and whatnot, because they are choosing. So if I say something that, anti-Semitic against like Jewish people, or like those who are German and whatnot, or we can take it down the line to like any other European, I'm deemed as this. But then I will be the one to tell you that, I ain't got no problem having sex with any other race and whatnot, So once I put it out there, like, what else you got for me and whatnot, But depending on how situations are taken and how situations are drawn, everyone's trying to find this one thing to put everyone in check and whatnot. But the one thing that bothers me the most is that anytime, towards this bigotry and, anti-Semitic towards any brother, any person who's Black, and they say something like that, it just goes against that. They want you to forget about that slavery ever happened, because I don't like to say the white man, but basically the Arabs, the Europeans, and those from the UK were basically the ones who created the slave trade. Well, the Arabs did, but they're the ones who kept continuing the slave trade, and they all basically benefited from the slave trade and whatnot, And they don't want to say what they did, but then they don't want you to feel ashamed of what they did. But when we tell them, like, your ancestors did this, how do you feel about it? That's when everyone goes in the corner and cry and whatnot. But then if I say something after that, towards, someone's sexual preference and everything, you want to bear me down to the ground and whatnot until like there's nothing left for me and whatnot, So to me I feel like they're always not picking sides and everything. They've already learned how to use, like I told everyone, their labels, and learn how to basically separate and divide people, which is basically distinguish, which is basically discriminate, to create all this, friction, I would like to use because it's a better term. Mm-hmm. So I definitely agree with you on that, Pat. That's the thing that I feel like that's a divisive, tactic, I would say, they use, to create, this friction that we always have about this and whatnot,
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
I mean, because
right.
so and just I just want to just end it off a little bit, because like DaBaby could have said that, if he would have said that, to a gay person, oh, it would have been shit over fan and whatnot. But he just said it while he was performing and whatnot, you know? And that's what, you know.
Unnecessarily, completely unnecessarily.
It was,
and for no other reason than being homophobic. It would be different if it was like someone walked in and saw two people giving each other head in a parking lot or something. His comment, just like bringing out Tory Lanez right after Megan Thee Stallion, was nothing but a show of his ridiculous behavior and personality. What was the purpose of bringing out Tory Lanez right after Megan Thee Stallion, who actually was arrested and charged with the assault? Because he shot her in the foot because she wanted to get out of the car because they were in an argument. That was the reason he shot her. And
must
so
not love hoes,
the baby thought it was funny to bring out Tory Lanez right after Megan Thee Stallion performed. He's just a ridiculous human being. It's just that simple. There was no validity to anything he done. He is not a Christian who decided he didn't believe in the LGBTQ community because it was against Christianity or any kind of moral or anything that he has. He just wanted to be homophobic and misogynistic that day. So he decided to do it. For me, it's just that simple. At this point, it's not even anymore the topic about being buck broken. Speaking directly to what DaBaby did, there was nothing noble about his actions. There is no cause for it. Nothing. Right. No, you didn't. But I'm just saying, like, he didn't do it for a reason. I can see if you all were saying, like, for instance, Nick Cannon made his comments because he felt like the material that he was putting out or the statement that he was making was something he felt the public needed to know, right? Or that he felt like it was going to actually make a difference for the public to know. Now, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong or that is truthful or non-truthful, but there was a legitimate reason behind why Nick Cannon wanted to do what he did. DaBaby's was to spread hate. It's unnecessary. It was to spread hate against Megan Thee Stallion when he brought out Tory Lanez and misogyny, and it was to spread hate against the TQ community for no reason.
All right, so I just want to add something real quick because I know we're trying to get to the next subject. But what I will say is, so with my stance, I just want to make it clear that I'm not advocating for DaBaby. I'm not in any kind of agreement with him. I'm not, I'm not backing him. I just want to make that clear. I don't listen to his music. I don't even know any of his songs. Like, I don't, the buck breaking.
Not again. I don't care about none of these artists.
Finally, the nonchalant comment finally came. The nonchalant comment finally came.
This is no disrespect. These artists can do what they do, make their money, whatever.
So he don't even exist right now, Pat? Does he even exist?
Yeah, they exist, and they do their thing.
He on the same level as Iggy Azalea,
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's just how I look at it. So they exist. They're doing what they do, and they make money, which is cool. You got to do what you got to do to put money in your pocket, feed your family, whatever. So I don't fuck with their music. I don't listen to any of these people. So the buck breaking part, I just thought the corporate buck breaking, I saw that going on, and I just wanted to speak more to that, just that. I'm not trying to, I'm not pro DaBaby because, like I said, I don't listen to his music. I don't know any of his songs. Like, I don't follow him, so I can't, I just look at it as, he's just another rapper who's being buffoonish, pretty much. He just got on stage and said some stupid shit. It's just pretty much that. That's how I look at it.
That night would have been perfect for him to wear the damn diaper because he was out.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a nigga who wore a diaper.
Baby.
So you know, I just look at it as
actual diaper, y'all. Like,
right, an actual diaper.
Hit me to that too. That's so crazy.
You could have gave him a rattle and he could have shaked it and be like,
"Oh my gosh!"
So like,
I actually couldn't believe that when you all hit me to that. I was like,
yeah,
wait,
he
an actual diaper.
Wow. Yeah, so basically, I just look at it as he's just being a buffoon. You know, yet another rapper being a buffoon, and you know, that's what happened. Right. But as far as the power play of it all, that's what I was more focused on. So I just wanted to make that clear for the listeners out there.
Sure, absolutely. All right, thank you, fellas. That was definitely an interesting one.